The future family violence system. I think, to me, I hope it looks like that people are more educated around what family violence is. I think family violence is very much focused on physical and kind of sexual abuse rather than the emotional and financial and spiritual abuse. So I hope that there's an understanding of what family violence actually encompasses in the future, so all those behaviours can be addressed rather than just the physical.
And I think it encapsulates being inclusive and also easily accessible to people who need the systems.
The future family violence, I would hope that we wouldn't have any family violence in our community, that we could stamp it out. And I understand it's going to take a lot of work, time and effort with agencies and local government and also the community, but I'd like to see zero family violence.
I would like to see that there's more resources and funding put into our agencies, that there's not so much violence, that would be good, and that people are comfortable in opening up and saying when the family member's been affected by violence.
You hear the police and the amount of times they get called out per night to family violence issues, and you know you've got an issue in your community. So I think the more we're educated and the more that we can talk to our communities about trying to have zero tolerance to family violence, I think the better we can improve things in the future.
The reason that we wanted to participate today was to have a say in what's going to happen in the future and particularly represent a rural perspective.
In my capacity as a council, I think it's about getting the message out to our communities, to talk to our sporting groups, our males in our community, our young men, and if you hear something or see something that's untoward, then you've got to say something to your fellow man that it's not on.
I've had family members involved with family violence. I also see a lot through my work and through previous works, working in Aboriginal communities, and I just think that it's something that's really, it's time to say no, basically.
In the future, it certainly will be a community issue. If we want to really get on top of it and address it fully and totally, but until such time as we acknowledge that it's a community issue and we need to tackle it as such, we'll never get on top of it in the true sense.
Looking forward, I'd like to see a healing centre around family violence for the Indigenous people. In
relation to police response to family violence, there's been some significant changes in the last more recent years, and I guess my vision is to further enhance those capabilities, and I certainly attempt to do that now by promoting better response by police to family violence.
We need to take a holistic approach with dealing with family violence, and it is everybody's business, but how we can come together as one and work on a healing centre that's going to help everyone.
And I guess it's a whole community free from family violence is really what our vision would be, but that really good pathways and support so that victims don't have to try to navigate that the system is supporting of that.
So I always use the words don't be the expert, because the victims are the experts, or the survivors, they're the ones we need to be learning from. We're not the professionals, we might be employed as such, but actually it's our victims and survivors who are the experts. So they continue to teach us.
Not only awareness, but the ability to come forward and seek help when it's required, because for a long time, for a lot of people, it's something that certainly is not something they readily talk about to other people. We'd like to see more awareness of people being able to get help and to come and get it.
It's around working collaboratively in partnerships, speaking the same language, working from a client-centric approach, giving our victims or survivors of family violence the tools necessary for them to actually be empowered around their own situation, make decisions that are conducive to their own well-being. I suppose with the view to breaking that perpetual cycle of family violence. We need to remove this whole stigma and taboo about we don't talk about family violence here. Well, why not?
I think it's not the change that I can make, it's the change that the community needs to make, because it's a generational thing. If we don't take it to the schools, if we don't take it to the school yards, and like the founder of White Ribbon said, he said, until such time as that we have the conversation in lounge rooms between children and adults about gender equality, about treating each other as an equal, then we are going to be left with that challenge forever.
I want to see a safe community, our community as well as the wider community. I want to make sure that the wider community embrace our cultural diversity and are respectful of Aboriginal people and our place in the community and our rightful place there, and that it is a shared vision for all of us for the future, that we live in a safe, happy and healthy and diverse community.
I see a system that where women can freely report or disclose violence. They're not limited by anything. I see a system that is culturally responsive, and I also would like to see a society where women are no longer hurt.
I think that what we want to achieve is timely responses to family violence so that we're able to sort of eradicate family violence. I think that's the objective.
You know, capacity in people in dealing with drug and alcohol issues, culture, racism, they all impact on Aboriginal people, and there's significant reasons as to why we have a high contact with the Aboriginal family violence. Yeah.
I would just love to see that from Aboriginal, the ACO sector and our community sector, that we are seen as equal partners and valued by the mainstream sector, and that for our communities, that irregardless of what service and door that they enter and they're treated in a respectful way, that they are able to be safe, and that there's a cultural lens over the supports and or the services that they want to access, and that they can go and do it and know that they will be supported when they walk through that door.
The impact on family violence on the Aboriginal community is particularly detrimental. If you look at children in out-of-home care, and there are quite significant numbers, over 1,500 Victorian Aboriginal children in out-of-home care. I think something like 90% of that is as a direct result of family violence. So it's very important, because strong families are the foundation of Aboriginal culture, and we want to address that.
I see some hope. I can't sort of reflect on what I'd wish to see, but I just think that we're all moving forward together, we're all wanting change. I do hope that we don't have to come back and repeat these conversations in another 10 years, because it's been a lifetime for me and we're just saying the same thing over and over and over. So I think today is refreshing.
I hope that I provide an opportunity for young people, like a role model, and enable their voice and that support and respect their opportunities to take up a leadership role in this space.
We work exclusively with victim survivors of family violence. 93% of our clients are Aboriginal women, and I want to ensure that Aboriginal women's voices are heard and they're not silenced through any process.
As a CEO of an organisation, you see your community members, this impacting on them and family members, and it's on a personal level, it's very close to our hearts, and I'm like a lot of other Aboriginal people in Victoria, that we're affected by it, and we want to see solutions. Yeah.
I just hope that in the future that our children can see through the eyes of children, and that we all can live in this beautiful country together as human beings, because there is one race, and that is the human race. And I'm tired of the rape, the murder, racism, the bigotry, the ignorance, and I just hope that my granddaughter has a better future.
I'm hoping that there'll be far more effective and more seamless avenues for women, pathways for women to seek justice, to be safe, whether that's to stay in their own home with protective systems around them, whether they choose to leave, whatever it is that women want to do. I'm hoping that we're going to have the capacity to help them achieve more quickly.
Old people, young people, children, grandmothers, grandfathers, men, women, anybody who's experiencing a situation that they're not comfortable with, they should be able to have systems or people or processes or whatever the case may be, somewhere that they can talk about it and be able to have some action taken so that they're safe.
A wraparound system so that however the victims land in the system, that the system actually wraps around not just the victim and their children, but also the perpetrators, so that there's actually appropriate interventions at all levels. What's happened is a complete disconnect between what the victim needs and also then how do we resolve the issues with the perpetrator, and depending on when they've entered the system, it could be at the first instance or it could be an entrenched behaviour of long-term abuse, that there needs to be different approaches to that. So we need a system that actually is flexible but also wraps around the whole situation, and that each part of that is dealt with appropriately.
When a woman and child walk into a service, regardless of where that service is, she's going to have a streamlined response. She's going to know where she can get support, and there's going to be effective, timely, well-resourced support available to her for that entire journey, right from crisis point through to complete recovery.
The program is called Canine Support, and what we're trying to do is eventually get dogs into the Australian court system to help victims of violent crime with a layer of support that humans can't give. So especially with children, women and children of domestic violence.
You need local leadership to raise the issue, because you actually don't make changes by committee, you actually make changes by people standing up to be counted. And that's actually about people becoming leaders in their community. And I would hope that it inspire other leaders in our community to stand up to be counted. So it's not just me talking, but there's other champions out there who are willing to grasp the baton, like a relay race, take the baton and keep running with it.
A dog potentially in each agency. So Coop's working with Centre Against Violence in Wangaratta at the moment, and also Goulburn Valley Centre Against Sexual Assault on Fridays. So to have a dog in each agency there, ready to go when they're needed, that would be my vision.
I believe that we have a service sector with so much expertise and professionalism in this area, and that if only we can put all those pieces together, get the system working together, then we're going to have effective responses for as long as we need them, until we can get to a point of primary prevention where we don't see family violence.
From today, I'd be thinking it gives me added hope that women are going to be treated better in the system, through the courts, by the police, by the service sector, by the community, when they're trying to leave violence.
The biggest killer for women aged 15 to 45 is men's violence against women, which we know is related to gender stereotypes. And the biggest killer for men is suicide. And we know that a number of men feel as though they're unable to talk about their feelings and to talk about their emotions due to the pressures of what it is to be a man and around masculinity. So to me, if the biggest killers of men and women in our society are around or have links to masculinity, then that's where we need to be addressing, and that's what we need to be doing.
It's the community being able to take ownership and drive processes and drive things that are happening that will make change. The government needs to be part of that, but the community needs to be involved, or we will never get positive outcomes.
This is a really exciting space and time to be working in the prevention of violence against women. There's, you know, such a huge momentum around this topic, and yeah, the conversations have changed a lot since when I first began working in this space. And I think we know that this is going to take such a long time to be able to see sort of, I guess, the significant change that we want. But I think that we have to start, and I think we need to keep having these conversations, and while there's still momentum and while there's still excitement and enthusiasm around it, then this is the time to act now.
Well, the system itself, I think, is going to be a lot more focused on children. I think children and young people, so there'll be a really strong prevention element to it, an education element to it for young people and children. That helps minimise the amount of incidents that's happening with family violence.
My vision is to try and start at the children's age, engage them in positive activities. So the group that I'm linked with is already starting that direction, to focus on youth and these activities, to think about not just family violence but the community in general.
It's coming back to, you know, the women being able to enter and be able to get a service under that one banner, instead of being, you know, sent to this service, sorry, we can't help you, you don't meet our criteria, sorry, we don't have the funding for you, you need to go to another service. That needs to stop.
My vision would be that whatever door somebody comes through, they will be directed and supported through all of the other services that they will need to actually make a difference to their life, to feel supported and yeah, just have better lives. That's my view.
A system that is easy for, I guess, users to navigate. One that is supportive for both professionals to learn and skill up in, and for families to be able to gain that support as well.
Raising awareness, raising education, helping people so that we don't end up in a situation where we just wait till the pointy end occurs and then we throw everything at it with police and courts, etc. By then it's too late. I think you try to deal with things earlier on so that it doesn't become a big problem later on.
I think the system will look like we have better gender equity. I mean, we sit in this club room right now. It's a football, netball club room, and whilst it's fantastic, it's lovely and colourful, and I barrack for the Tigers myself, it is full of men, and we don't see the netball represented here, which is a real shame. So it's little things like that that we'll see changed over time.
When you're dealing with these problems, it's not just up to one person or one agency, it's a social responsibility. So everyone's really got to do the heavy lifting. You just can't leave it to one person to do. Someone's in trouble, they need help, whether it's a victim, whether it's a perpetrator, whether it's the children.
I guess I've seen the effects that family violence has had from infants through to adolescence. So I guess I'm quite passionate about sort of having that recognised in, I suppose, this forum where there's a chance that things can be improved to make it a bit easier for young people and for children. I guess it's hard to have their voices represented, but obviously they're one of the biggest victims, I guess, throughout all of this.
Yeah, it's for me it's all about the children, because they don't have a choice in the matter, they're thrown into the middle of it.
There's a lot of great work that's happening in the community already. We just need to expand on it even further and bring it all to the awareness of every single person so that we can create this social change that needs to happen.
It's been a great day, been very uplifting to sort of see the buy-in from local services. People have participated today, and certainly a message I will happily take and share through my networks, I guess.
A future family violence system would look like to me one that is culturally responsive, one where women, regardless of who they are, background, culture, race, gender, experiences, feel safe going to, one where they'll go for whatever system they first walk into, they'll receive the right response and the appropriate help from the first response.
We might actually have empty beds in the refuges, and we might have phone workers who get to take a breath between phone calls because the rates actually start to go down and the demand actually starts to go down.
It looks like the kind of system, I think, where it doesn't matter how someone enters it, you know, but from the moment that they seek support, whether it's through Victoria Police, whether it's through an intervention order, whether it's through a counselling service, or whether it's presenting to their employer with injuries that are indicative of family violence, that they're supported and that that particular human being is at the centre of the system response.
Everyone is heard, everyone's respected, and everyone is helped when they need to be helped.
I think we need to do two things. One is to get the system right now so women can and children can access the services now. But we also need to start thinking about how we stop violence happening in the first place, and that means making it everybody's job to promote respect, to role model equality, and to make that part of absolutely everybody's day when they turn up to work. And only then we'll start to see an actual drop in the rates of violence and the system won't be needed anymore.
There needs to be ongoing support for children and young people who have experienced domestic violence or any sort of other disadvantage throughout their life, for them to be able to, I guess, become successful and to be able to get over the experiences that they've had.
I would like a system where there is no boundaries to accessing accessible housing. Children's rights are being heard, they're being implemented, and people with disabilities, they have access to accessible housing, support, whether it be from family or from professional support services. It would be a brighter future for everybody, where they could know that there is this one place where they can go and get access to all the information that they need.
We cannot do much about fires and floods, but we can do an awful lot about behavioural issues, and I believe that family violence is a behavioural issue, and I think if we can lead now, and our new leaders coming into growing up, I think we'll be in safe hands.
It's important to have a sense that we can see an end to this. It's not just about perpetuating a system that's got to be there forevermore. It's actually about trying to find ways to stop it happening in the first place, so that when we look back on this time, we think this is the moment where we made a difference.
I live in a small rural community. It's very difficult, everybody knows everybody, and quite often it's just the unspoken of that people don't want to make any waves about addressing or calling out on behaviours. And I think local government, being the level of government closest to the people, from maternal child health to youth to aged, across the spectrum, local government is worth investing in to make this difference.
Workplaces and sports clubs and schools and local governments and the arts sector and newspapers understanding what respect and equality is, what it looks like, how they can model it, and how, if they do that, they'll contribute to an end in family violence. That's what we need to do well now, and we have the opportunity to do it because everybody's kind of focused on the issue and excited about it.
It's really important for Aboriginal women and Aboriginal organisations to have our voices at these kind of conversations across the state, to ensure that our programs and our voices and our solutions are at the forefront for Aboriginal women.
As a man, you sometimes might think that you're not involved in this, or that it's an issue that affects women, and it does affect women more than men in terms of being victims, but we all play a role in changing the sorts of community attitudes and championing gender equality, which will bring about an end to the sorts of abuse that women suffer on a daily basis.
I know what it's like to be a survivor. I want to be a voice for women and children with disabilities and young people with disabilities who are experiencing family violence. I don't want not one more person, with a disability or not with a disability, to go through what I've been going through for the last 4 years.
I want to sort of see where this leads. I want to know exactly what's happening in the domestic violence sector at the moment. I want to know what we've achieved so far and what we're going to hopefully achieve in the future. And I want to be a part of that. I want to know what's happening, and I want to be able to promote it to other people to get them to be able to be involved in this as well.
I refuse to be known as a victim, because being a victim to me means powerlessness, and I am not powerless. I am wanting to be powerful, and that's why I think we need to see survivors of family violence not as a victim, but as survivor, and give them the power that they need.
There's been a lot of talk, and now I want to see a lot more action, and I think the groups that I work with want to hold people accountable.
It's not an easy task. Where do you start? It's very difficult, but if we don't start somewhere, we will get nowhere.
Authorised by the Victorian Government, 1 Treasury Place, Melbourne.